Welcome to the Owner's Lounge, the podcast made for the ones who don't just stay in hotels, they own them. Whether you're managing your first property or you've built an empire from a single roadside motel, this is your space, your journey, your community. We're talking stories that matter, moves that change lives, and the insights no one teaches you unless you've lived it. Real stories, real owners, real impact. This is the Owner's Lounge.
In 2022, Marriott sent out a letter saying they are ending their relationship with AHOA. They said, and I quote, AHOA has chosen to pivot its stance in a way that is decidedly anti-franchising and anti-Marriott. But if you really read between those lines, what they're calling anti-franchising is actually something deeper. It's anti-asymmetry. See, franchising in theory sounds like a partnership, two sides working together to build something bigger. The definition even says the franchisee gets the right to operate a business using the brand systems, products, and intellectual property in exchange for ongoing fees and royalties. Sounds balanced, right? But in practice, that right comes at a cost that never ends. You're paying for every price of the system you're told you're part of. Because the truth is, those systems and those products aren't gifts from the franchisor, they're invoices. You're paying for every line item of the very structure you're supposed to belong to. The reservation system fee, the loyalty program fee, the standards, brand standards fee. And for the franchisor, they don't own your risk. They only own your revenue. You could be underwater for years and they'll still collect every royalty, every marketing dollar, and every technology surcharge right on schedule. And that phrase, intellectual property, it sounds sophisticated, but what it really means is this. You're renting their reputation. You can build a hotel, pay the staff, take the calls at midnight when someone breaks or something breaks, but you'll never own the name on the building. You're just leasing it. So when they sell you on projected occupancy rates or average daily rates, and those numbers don't even come close, who's accountable? Not them. They'll tell you, oh, market conditions changed, but the royalty withdrawals keep hitting your account on the first of every month. That's why AHOA pushed back. The 12 points of fair franchising weren't born out of rebellion. They were born out of fatigue. Fatigue from owners who realized they were carrying all the risk while the brands carried all the rewards. I am pleased to announce we are going to have a Zoom in with two excellent people. One person is Sagar Shah, the president of Reform Lodging, and we also have Mayur Patel. He is AHOA's Gulf Coast Regional Director. So we will have them on Zoom, and we're going to discuss some of these topics that I have just mentioned.
Greetings to the world's best hotel conference. Welcome, AHOA. We're glad to have you at the Gaylord. I wish I could be with you. I had hoped to be there, but unfortunately have a sudden trip that I'm required to take to China, so I'll be a long way away, but know that I'm there with you in spirit. You run a great conference filled with energy, filled with optimism about the future of our industry in the United States and many other parts of the world. Congratulations on AHOA's continued success. Your team has asked me to talk a little bit about leadership, and I want to talk about two traits of leadership, listen and speak. Listen is a word that Mr. Marriott uses frequently to talk about what he's learned through his 60-some years at Marriott International. And when he talks about listening, he's really talking about keeping your ears open and being deliberate to find input into the decisions, particularly the important decisions that have to be made. 25 years ago, when I started working with Mr. Marriott, he would often call me at home in the evening and ask me what happened that day. He had the ability to ask 3 or 4 or 5 other people in the company the same question about the same events on the same day. And by the way, he called each of us. It was important for him to understand a variety of perspectives about issues which were really important to the company. And by asking, he was listening, he was getting input, he was getting feedback. He was also building a team because in a way he was communicating to each of those he asked, what you have to say is important to me. And what I ultimately decide will be influenced by what I hear from you. Too often, leaders stop listening and they speak too much, never hearing the input that they need to get from their team. But the second thing that's important is to speak. And when I think about the team that we're blessed with at Marriott, what I am most interested in is hearing their points of view. I want to listen to them, but I want to make sure that I am hearing from them what they really think. Too often, and this is particularly the case in big companies, we want to reserve our riskiest comments. We want to hold them back. We want to say what maybe somebody we think wants to hear. Or maybe we want to say something that has only been broadly digested and regurgitated into something which is consensus, something which is safe. But that's not good enough. We won't have the kinds of discussions we need to have unless we are willing as a team and with our team members to say, this is what I believe, or this is what I worry about, or I wonder about this question. And of course, we can't do that without speaking up, taking some risk, sticking our neck out. So both of these things, listen and speak, are important. Now, if you do too much of one and none of the other, you won't achieve what you need to accomplish. If you listen when it's important to listen and be deliberate about listening, but then when it's time for a decision to be debated or made, if you speak and stick your neck out, you'll come to a place where in both circumstances, we're building better teams, where we're sharing a path to the future. We're doing it in a way that gives us great pleasure and energy in working with each other, and we're coming to a better conclusion. I wish you all the best for AHOA's meeting. Look forward to being with you next year. And again, congratulations on all your success. Don't forget, listen and speak.
I think that speech was absolutely amazing. And the fact how it described what leadership should be and is just phenomenal. What do you guys think about that?
Oh, it it's a great speech, honestly. If you really understand what he means, that summarizes everything the leader should be and what leaders should follow and do everything, right?
Absolutely right. So, a
Yeah.
true leader, if we take a look at it in all our aspects of life that we have, our leaders should do this to be the best leaders that they can, is they do listen to the people that they need to listen to. They get their inputs, and ultimately that shapes the decisions that the leader will make. But he's not just listening to one or two. He's listening to a different amounts of people that were at the same event. So he's getting perspectives from 5 or 6 different people that attended the same event or meeting or everything. So he's getting 5 different viewpoints, and he can constructively take that information and then speak. Okay. Like he said, first we need to listen and then we need to speak when it's appropriate. And don't be afraid of sticking your neck out to talk about something that is vital, that needs to be talked about and discussed. I found that to be amazing.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's really nice to hear, somebody from, the C-suite have that sort of mentality.
Yes.
Because unfortunately, as we see in our hospitality industry, there's a huge disconnect, between the C-suite, the franchisors, who have these standards and sort of new initiatives that they bring about without much input from the owner operator at the ground level.
Right. That's my point exactly as well. And earlier I said the definition of franchising, we're also we're coming into a partnership where it says that we are entitled to use the brand's intellectual property. Now, that word seems very sophisticated, intellectual property. What that really means is we franchisees don't own that name that we put on the board. We're only leasing it from them. They don't own anything. The only thing that they own is the revenue that we will provide them with. That is what they own. We own the building. We own the operations. We control what we do at property to make that revenue for them. So our input is very vital in the relationship that goes on between a franchisee and franchisor. And the way I feel today's franchisee-franchisor agreements are going are one way, and that we can't have that. What do you guys feel about that? Or how do you feel about that?
Mac, you wanna lead?
Yes. So you are exactly right. I will start by saying I have tried to reach out to CEO on few occasions to bring up certain concerns that he should be aware of to betterment of company, to betterment of franchisee franchisor relationship. And you know what? After sending email, it get forwarded to other department, another person, and then I get somebody calling me. And I was like, okay, what is the point of me trying to reach to a leader of the company who should care how the company is run for betterment of everybody and is not even willing to respond to me?
Right?
Despite of I'm investor, I'm a partner. Supposedly I'm the partner, right? I'm
So
not even getting the return feedback.
So my question to you, Mac, is if there are not the CEO of the company that you want to reach out to discuss the issues that you are seeing with that particular brand, and the person that's ultimately responsible for making that decisions is not listening to you, then let me ask you, who is he listening to? Where is he getting the information to make the decisions that he needs to make for operations? Who is his number one priority and concern?
My best guess would be his staff or his below leaders or department heads is who is he listening to, not actual franchisee who is boots on the ground or the army of that brand, right? That he should be listening and getting a feedback from to make better for everybody.
Right.
That's what a leader should do. And instead, he listens to the corporate staff, the corporate employees, and however they want to shape it, however they want it to dictate it to the leader is how it's portrayed the whole situation scenario.
Right. In addition to that, I think he's also listening to his board. He's listening to his shareholders, right? And that's where
Shareholders.
that's where that disconnect comes into play, because you're always going to have some semblance of a disconnect because their skin in the game is very different than our skin in the game.
Yes. So Sagar, I'd love to you if you can enlighten us, our viewers, as to what differences those are that they have versus what we have.
So I think for them, when you're in a CEO position, I think you serve, at the pleasure of the board, right? So at that point, there is a total, their responsibilities lie in driving profits, right? Where do they derive profits from? They derive profit ultimately from our revenue, right? But in addition to that, how do they level up their profitability from last year to, let's say, this fiscal year? And I think the way to do that is, through fee creep, right? There's, through various initiatives that have a negligible or, zero ROI for an owner operator. that doesn't make much sense to us. And that's where these initiatives that really aren't going to impact the guest experience, say, the Wi-Fi, the mandated Wi-Fi vendors you have to use, or the mandated, you know, access control companies for example, for RFID keys that you might have to use. There's so many different ways in which they penetrate, our sort of freedom, if you would, as a small business owner, and ultimately that's all done with the sole sort of focus to just drive profits in whatever way they can. And they're asset light; they don't own these assets. All franchisors operate an asset light model.
Right.
We are the asset owners, right? And so I think that's where there's that massive disconnect.
So with that question, I have a question for you: is what real risk are they taking, and what real risk is the property owner taking?
Well, the property owner's risk is feast or famine, right? Because our risk, I mean, if we get, let's say you get blindsided by, a really poor lawsuit, really bad lawsuit that, let's say can penetrate your corporate veil. Let's say it's something tied to some of these, let's say it's a bad ADA lawsuit or some of the stuff that we're seeing lately with the human trafficking stuff.
Mm-hmm.
you know, y- y- you're finished, right? You can lose your asset. There's a lot of different problems that come up with that. So our risk is real. Our risk is, it's literally the shirt on our backs,
Right.
versus their risk is reputation, right? Maybe their reputation, maybe their risk is, not signing as many development deals the next year. It's very different.
So it
None of,
seems to me like majority of the risk is on the property owner themselves, not the affiliated franchisor that they're affiliated with. Am I hearing that correct?
no question.
Yes, and I agree with you. Now, on top of that, with Ernie's speech that he gave at the 2018 Marriott, or for Marriott as the CEO of Marriott in 2018 to at the HoaCon, and he referenced his leadership and what leaders should do and how to act. And I thought that very insightful. And go figure, it was a Marriott CEO that was talking that way, which is excellent. So there's nothing wrong. I'm not saying anything wrong with having a franchisor agreement. I actually love that independence. We need to be able to franchise. That is something. But what we need to understand, and what I want to have everyone aware of, is that relationship needs to be a partnership, which is what it is, which is what we signed up for, a partnership. A partnership involves both parties, not just one. So we need to make sure that they are also listening to our voices, because we're the ones that are on the grounds promoting their product. We're the ones selling their products. So they need us as much as we need them. It is a mutual partnership. One side should not be benefiting more than the other side. Now, I have a question for the both of you, and please, I would like to know this as a hotel operator, and in the future, if I look at maybe acquiring another property or building another property, as to which franchise model I can go with that would best suit me. And the question I would like to ask and know is these reward points that brands come out with. My last one I saw Marriott and Hilton have a credit card that if you apply for the credit card, you get 50,000 sign up bonus points towards your Bonvoy account or your Hilton Diamonds rewards. There's multiple other ones out there. I do apologize that those are the two that I'm using because those are the biggest ones right now. But now they're offering a credit card where you get 50,000 extra miles and points, and the hotel is not paying for that. But that guest can stay at a Marriott or Hilton property and use those points to stay there. Now, how is the hotel getting rewarded and compensated for that? What fees are being paid? I think the hotel has to pay for points as well. Please help me understand that whole scenario a little bit, if you could.
I will start. First of all, little correction on that, Sandeep. these big credit card points, they're due anywhere upwards to 150,000 to 180,000 bonus
Oh,
points
wow.
just to get the credit card, just to sign up. Okay. To me, what that does, it's diluting our points that we have accumulated or created for our customers. We pay per dollar, and it's a range between different brands, but minimum I have been charged 4.5% to 5% per dollar that we pay towards this program. Till today, no brand have came out and said we're gonna pay hotel or reimburse hotel 100% ADR for any given nights. Now, some brands have done where you are 90% occupancy or 96% occupancy. They will pay you 80% of ADR or 95% of ADR, not 100% ADR.
Wow. So if I go with the brands like this, I'm expected to pay extra for something that I didn't even know was going on or able to sell at my property. That customer didn't even come to my property, but they have the points and they're reimbursing me for less than what I would have got from any other customer walking into my door.
Yeah.
That's
Yes.
makes you
Yes.
think, well, maybe our
Yes.
brand is the way to go, so or
Yes.
independent better than with that option, because it seems like that would take money out of my bottom line that I'm getting at the end of the year. Don't you
The
agree?
son of the issue is, if you're operating in a secondary or a tertiary market, good luck trying to do so without a brand, right? I'm
Right.
sure there's examples of individuals who've been successful at it, but for example, in my markets, operating brandless, you'd be signing a death wish, right? Essentially, it's not feasible, and a lot of that has to do with the penetration of so many different brands on any given exit,
Mhm.
right? My market has probably 4 or 5 Hilton products, so how am I going to compete as a independent with such a powerful booking engine, right? So that's where it becomes problematic. But to your point, yes, the reward point situation is a huge scam. And a lot of it has to do with reimbursements. I mean, how is it fair that a guest can redeem a free night stay at your hotel and the compensation that the hotel owner and the property gets is $35?
Wow.
How are you in this day and age with tariffs, inflation, and all these macroeconomic problems that we have? How can we sit back and just take that? That I think is it's shocking. It just shocks the conscience. But here we are, and it just continues to occur.
It is, and that's sad. And you actually bring me to another question that highlighted a little bit with being in certain markets that if you go brandless or are independent, you will not survive. And my question is, when some of these brands, let's take Marriott and Hilton, for example, here, because this is in reference to those more particularly, we've, to me as a consumer, see those brands as higher elite brands compared to maybe a Choice or Wyndham properties. So to me, they already have a little step above that. They offer more for me as a guest. They have better amenities, and the atmosphere and all that is a little better off at those brands. But now, in order for them to stay in a market, because all their brands are given away, they don't have another flag. I've seen Marriott and Hilton come up with a economic, budget friendly brand.
Mhm.
Why are Marriott and Hilton's a top tier brand or franchisor coming to a market that is mainly predominantly, Wyndham Choice field markets where it's economy budget friendly hotels? Why are they doing that? Can you guys explain that to me?
My response to that would be scale. Majority of the markets now is tapped out with their current brands.
Right.
So in order for their again stocks or valuation to go up, they need to scale. And
And
this was the only market that they could go after. So here we go. Now we got the conversion brands that tapping into the mid-scale and economy brands, which was primarily independent or little small boutiques is where
right.
they're going after.
So when you're putting your model on scaling, like you just mentioned, I love it. Thank you, Mac. That's a great point. Scaling today is great. It looks really good on paper. It wows boardrooms is what it's doing. Okay. The stock prices are going through the roof with the scaling that's going on. But who is really benefiting from that? And what is happening to the actual property owners because of that model of scaling?
Yeah.
Eventually, there's going to be a time where we're not going to be able to scale anymore. Then what happens?
Yeah, so I think to Mac's point, to continue on with that, scale is most definitely, I think, one of the primary reasons that you're seeing this. But the other reason, and I think the franchisors are very smart, they have so much data, they have just access to information, right? And they sort of know what's going on amongst owners, whether it's through organizations, advocacy organizations, whether it's through smaller events, or it's through their own owners associations that a lot of these brands have. Um, I think they realized, especially post COVID, that with the existing franchisors that sort of cater to the middle market or the economy or budget traveler, I think they've realized that a lot of owners are not happy with
Mhm.
some of those brands, right? And I think a lot of us here, we know what brands we're referring to. I mean,
Yes.
there's been there's been legal cases, there's been press, there's been a lot of things, right, that we've seen, especially over the last 5 years. And so if you were to look at that, I think any franchisor, especially if I'm a franchisor, I'm going to look at that and say, I smell opportunity. If these owners are not happy with XYZ brand, maybe we can get in there. We already have the reputation of consistency and prestige. Our reward systems are the best in the world. We have such a high guest satisfaction, right?
Yes.
We can do budget and economy better than those other guys. And so you'll see a mass exodus of owners going from that are franchisees of those other brands shifting over to some of the bigger players. So I think it's a mix of scale and that void that those franchisors are seeing.
I agree. It almost sounds like there's looking at controlling a monopoly on all versions of the brand. And if we do that, and if we let a monopoly happen, that's poor on our own part, and that's bad. But again, another point I like to make out to these brands that are there, the franchisors that are there, how many of the properties that they have in their portfolio are actually brand owned and operated properties versus independent franchisees, would you think?
I'd
Zero?
say less than
Close to
1%.
zero?
Yeah, less than
Yeah.
1%.
Yeah.
I agree, and I have Google searched it many times. We'll take. I hate to keep bringing Marriott up into the topics, but we did see Ernie's speech, and it was an excellent speech. I absolutely love his speech about leadership. So I do apologize to Marriott for bringing them up all the time, but it is a big player that is in our industry. I think they are one of the leaders in our industry forefronts, especially franchisor wise. So with them doing this, and if they control the entire market and monopoly of from luxury to budget to economy scale hotels, what's that showing to us as Americans and general public, that we're going to let certain companies dictate how an entire industry is run? I don't think that's right. Take AHOA, for example, and what they have done with the Oxford study that they did back in 2022, which I found to be fascinating. And one of the big things that came out of that Oxford study showed that AHOA members owned more than 60% of the hotels in the US. That was an astonishing number. And the amount of revenue that we provide and the contributions to the GDP alone in this country are enormous. So with that, if you take any business model, let's just take any business, and you have two partners that run that business. You have a 60% partner and a 40% partner. Who are we letting run that business for us? Who is the one that is making that ultimate decision on what we should do? Is it the 40% or is it the 60%? 60%, right? Then why, as an association and an organization that its members own over 60% of an industry, not making the standards for our industry? Why are we letting the other 40% dictate what we do in our industry? That's a question that we all need to ask ourselves, people. Why are we letting that happen? I'll tell you one other thing real quick before we get into other things. AHOA did a great thing with the 12 points of fair franchising that it came out with to protect its members so they don't get ripped off by other franchisors. And their 12 points that they have that AHOA came up with are very small, adjustable points that are very fair in practice. And the fact that Marriott CEO and Marriott in 2022 sent a letter and pulled away from AHOA and said that AHOA was being anti-franchising. And I said it in my statement before that it's not anti-franchising that AHOA was being. We're being anti-asymmetry. Mm-hmm. And Marriott did not see that at that time. And that's what I want our members to understand and know too. We're like this. Imagine what would happen if we became this. I'm just going to put a hypothetical theory out here and then we can discuss this. Is imagine if every owner and member of AHOA decided one day we're all going to go independent. What would that do to the brands and the franchisors if hypothetically that were to happen? I'll let it up and open it up now.
Yeah, Sundip, I think that power structure would immediately collapse, right? Talk about the 60% taking ownership and control of the industry.
Right.
It's nice to see these, the study that AHOA did, the Oxford study. It was a wonderful study, I think.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of pertinent points, some really eye-opening points. And, I think it's how you use those points. And so I think because we have that data, now when you speak to your local congressman or congresswoman, or you go to Washington to lobby, or you're doing anything, whether it's you're doing something at the local political level or national,
Mm-hmm.
Now you have a nice background, you have a backdrop to provide stakeholders,
Yes.
people you need to convince on any particular topic. But that data can only go so far if that 60% has no unity.
Correct.
There's no unity. It's a very fragmented, and I think it's just the nature of our industry, the nature of our community, I think is one of succeed, do whatever it takes to succeed, right?
The best thing I like to use is if I don't do it, someone else is going to do it. So why not me? Is the saying that I hear a lot.
Correct. And I think it's fascinating because now you realize that franchisors are attending backyard events for our various, cultural events. They're sponsoring them.
I see the franchisors taking advantage of the situation that we ourselves have put us in by not being united as one. They're taking advantage. They're seeing what we should be seeing as a group, and they're using it for their best benefits. What we need to do as an association or organization is see that, and we need to start playing that game better than them because we can, it's because we own 60% of the industry in this country. That's why. And you mentioned advocacy, and that is very good. I love advocacy. I think advocacy is the number one thing that any of the associations should be concentrating on. And I'll give it to you, Sagar, as well. I love the stuff that Reform Lodging is doing with advocacy. I think they are very crucial, and I absolutely support 100% everything that Reform Lodging is doing because ultimately they're advocating for owners' behalves, like myself, with our government and constitution, and making everything fair the way it needs to be. We're not saying stop the business. We're not saying we don't want brands. We're saying Let's be fair. Let's bring the partnership back to where it is.
Yeah,
Any more
absolutely.
comments that you guys would like to share and discuss before we call it a wraps?
I will start with bringing one point that's a lot of our owners are not taking it seriously. And that point is signing personal guarantee for these franchise agreements. One thing is when we borrow money from the bank,
That's
yes,
understandable.
we have to sign it, right? Because we're taking somebody's money and we have to pay back and we are responsible to pay back. And that's a guarantee coming in handy. In franchise world, we're not borrowing money from franchisor. They're
No,
not giving us money. Matter of fact, we paying them from day one, from application fee to every dollar we collect at the brand, we paying them a cut from the top line revenue, not the
yes,
bottom line,
right.
right?
Top line.
Exactly. Now, these personal guarantees are coming and biting all the owners and franchisees in the situation like COVID or 2008 downturn. When bottom falls out, you have no choice but to exit the franchise for just saving your livelihood of whatever you got, house, car, whatever, right? But then brands come after that owner with full force to collect that LDs, collect
Right,
anything they can because the owners have signed that personal guarantee,
right. And
and
how
that
is
is
that?
very important.
Yeah, how is that called fairness? I don't
Exactly.
think that's fair. There's no fairness in that. Sagar, would you like to add any other stuff?
Yeah, I think the one point that I want to drive home, especially for new entrants to our business, I think anybody that's been in the game long enough, I think they know a thing or two about negotiating your franchise agreement. This is for the new entrants because there's a lot of individuals who are pivoting into real estate, they want to diversify. They might be in the QSR business and they have some money that they want to park into, hotel assets. Negotiate your license agreements. Everything's negotiable. Everything you can have windows, you can have caps on liquidated damages. In some cases you can have performance guarantees are a little bit hard, but there are ways in which you can make your franchise agreement more palatable and
Yes.
not one-sided, right? And I think it is really up to the advocacy organizations to educate owners about the pitfalls of signing the wrong franchise agreement. Number two, and I think we saw this during COVID, be wary of CMBS loans. We had one, and we had one at that time for one of our properties, and never again. It looks great, right? And then you have a black swan event, and then it's not. And I
Right.
remember we were doing so much advocacy at the time. We were trying to get to messages to the White House. We had a lot of individuals who were sort of part of that relief efforts. I mean, we were part of it. We wrote countless letters to the president and to the White House that in a black swan event like this, it's not our fault. We didn't cause it, and so we shouldn't be getting screwed,
Right.
and we should have the ability to get the deferments and other things that conventional folks with conventional lending got. And we learned our lesson. We luckily got out of that mess, and we were able to refi out when our term was up. But I would tell individuals that don't automatically think that your mortgage broker and that your lender, there's so many lenders out there. Don't think that they're looking out for your interests.
Right.
Most of the time they're really not,
No, they're not.
right? And so I think individuals need to be aware, and this especially for the newcomers to our business. Don't don't let them dangle that CMBS carrot, right? And just know that if you choose to go that route, be prepared for, there's no way out once you're in it.
That's very true. And I think more people and our owners do need to realize that too, that, key money is not the same. It's literally a loan that you are taking from the brand. That's what it is. You will have to pay that back. It's not money you can use to, oh, I got this money now. Let me reinvest in another project. Well,
There's
guess what?
no free lunch.
Downturn happens. You're
Yeah,
going to have to pay that money back and they're going to demand it. You're
yeah.
going to have signed guarantees. You're going to have all this, and they will take you to court because they have to watch their backs. So be very careful when signing those agreements. I agree. You could actually use that as negotiating power. Instead of taking that, hey, do something on my royalties and marketing side, which will help and benefit you as a property owner better and more in the long run versus that money.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And with respect to advocacy, I think I'm just hopeful. I hope that some of the existing organizations out there they don't pursue a diet advocacy or advocacy light model. And one of the reasons that you're seeing a lot of grassroots owners coming out, forming their own organizations, that's kind of how we started Reform Lodging. We felt there was a void. We felt we really had no true voice. We felt that some of the existing organizations are too political. They're not inclusive of all owners. And it can sometimes be an old boys or old girls club, right? And they don't speak for all owners. And I think, for us at Reform Lodging, our mantra is educate, enable, and enforce.
That's amazing. That's awesome. I like the educate part of it as well, because education is very vital. We need to be aware and knowledgeable about the systems that we're getting ourselves into. So education is very key. I love that. Thank you.
Absolutely.
So on top of that too, I mean, advocating is very important. And I will let you know, on my second episode that I had Senator Joe Griffo with me, and he said something very important to me that was amazing. And I was asking him about insurance and how insurance premiums are going through the roof, and what we can do, what I can do to bring that up to attention at New York State Assembly, just our New York State legislation. And I asked if it's someone I can come and go see. And you know what his answer to me was at that time? Sundip, if you can, you're associated with a group like AHOA or AHLA or the New York State Lodging and Tourism Association. You all need to show up at the Capitol. You all need to talk to your representatives. And he said one key important thing too is make sure you're all on the same page. You have 2 to 3 topics that you all want to discuss. So when AHOA is on the national stage and going and talking and advocating for its members, you're right. We're not able to discuss what every owner and every operator is facing. It is different. So it's hard to take the 3 most important things that we need to fight for and lobby for at those times. So I understand that we can't take every issue, but we need to start somewhere. And the best way is, what I would recommend, what you guys are doing as well with Reform Lodging, is creating these smaller groups that we can fight for at state levels, at, any one of our individual states. We can go to legislations and have advocacy for that. And I applaud that. I love that. Let's do that for every state, not just one state or one nation. AHOA does a great job with the nation, but don't forget about the states, because we have a lot of pull at the state level as well. And we can get changes done at the state level that would affect our owners directly in those states. So that's a ballpark we can be playing and advocating for as well. And I think AHOA needs to do a better job of doing the local advocacy as well as they do the national advocacy. So advocating, like I said, is my number one thing. I love it. We need to keep it up. I love what you guys are doing at Reform Lodging. AHOA, keep up the national advocacy. But again, all this stuff can only happen if our members contribute. So when it comes to go to the Capitol, be there. Just in person being there is so crucial. Meeting our legislators and Congress people, having that interaction. And I'm going to say one last thing is the story that we can share with them will go miles. Stories are important. They want to hear our personal stories. That will help them understand and see what is really going on, and we can make change happen. So I want to thank you guys. I love the time we had. I thought we had an excellent time on this Zoom, and I love some of your insights. We'll be obviously talking to each other in the future, and keep an open line. Do you guys have any questions or comments that you guys want to share real quick before we call it?
Sundip, I think one final sort of parting point, if you would. When we advocate, when we go to Washington, I think we need to make sure the agenda evolves, right? You
Yes.
can't have the same talking points year over year over year. And not to say, not to pour water on some of those points, but you know, we need to realize that as a collective group that owns 60% or more of the hotels in the United States, that we need to wield more of that power. And so I think some of the talking points, they need to evolve, things like tort reform and the insurance crisis and some of these other issues that they don't seem to be discussed much.
And that's sad. I agree, and that's sad. We do need to pay attention to those more, and we can actually do something with, especially tort reform, more effectively state by state versus national.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it, and we're going to continue this. I'm going to continue this, and I would love to have more people. Please let us know, message us, and I will try to get interviews or people on here. I would love to sit here with CEOs of our franchisors that we have and discuss some of these topics that operators and owners have these concerns about. So please, I invite you guys. Thank you for your time, Mac. Thank you for your time, Sagar. I appreciate it, and I will stay in touch. Thank you.
Thanks, Sundar.
So I hope everyone was able to get some insights from the conversations we just had with Sagar and Mayur. They were amazing. I thought it was enlightening, and I hope that we were able to bring awareness to everyone. I want to finish with a few things. Today, that fight didn't just stop with AHOA. Reform Lodging has picked up the torch, not just for hotel owners, but for every franchisee across industries. They're questioning the imbalance in every model, from hospitality giants to food chains like Chick-fil-A, where the so-called franchise opportunity often looks more like contracted servitude than entrepreneurship. The franchise system was supposed to be a partnership. What it's become is a hierarchy. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Unfairness is profitable. It's the most reliable business model on earth. But that doesn't mean it has to stay that way, because we live in a new world now, and where people read the fine print, where knowledge isn't controlled by a few executives in glass towers. Fairness might not make the same headlines as profit, but it's starting to speak louder. The older generation of hotel owners, maybe they accepted it. Maybe they said, that's how it's done. But this generation, my generation, yours, we're not built to just accept that anymore. We're asking why the system still only rewards one side. Because if partnership means one side takes all, was it ever a partnership to begin with? Maybe AHOA isn't anti-franchising at all. Maybe Reform Lodging isn't being radical. Maybe they're just brave enough to remind us what franchising is supposed to be.